Hi, eighth graders. I know last Friday you took a learning styles inventory, and I thought I would take a minute here or two just to kind of review what these learning styles mean, and then we'll take a look at those results again today. So, just really quickly recapping, what is a learning style? We know that it's a way that somebody learns, and it's really a part of who you are individually. And typically, you don't learn through just one style, but you learn through a combination of three. But most oftentimes, people really do have a specific preference. It's really important that you do know your learning style. I'm sure you've heard other teachers talk about this in the past too, but it helps you figure out where you are the strongest and how you can improve. It also, most importantly, helps you improve your study habits so that you study in the way that's most effective for your style. And it's helpful because it helps you improve your grades and work together in groups, which you do often in school. Now, typically, if you look at the breakdown of how people learn, the majority of people really do learn visually. So you can see that 65%. About 30%, their main learning style is auditory, and only 5% are kinesthetic. But I know last Friday we looked at all of your styles, and more of you were kinesthetic. So I wonder if these numbers aren't completely accurate and the kinesthetic side would be on the higher scale. All right, just really quickly reviewing. Auditory is learned by hearing, relate most to someone when they speak, and they prefer to listen to a lecture and take notes afterwards. And also, it's really important that auditory learners read information out loud. Visual people learn by seeing. They want to see written information. So, for example, a PowerPoint or written directions. They would prefer to have their notes printed. And again, probably most effective if they are communicating in a written way. Kinesthetic or tactile people, you obviously learn by moving, and you want to do a lot of practice and imitation, and basically have a really strong need for activity and exploration. Science classes are really fantastic for people with kinesthetic styles. So here's some tips, and I think these are probably the most important. Feel free if you want to write down a few of these if they apply to you. Otherwise, you'll be going through your inventory here in a second. So if you are a visual learner, try to remember when you're reading a textbook to look at those pictures, the charts, the graphs. Typically, people who are visual want to have a clear view of their teacher and facial expressions. So oftentimes visual learners prefer to sit in the front of the room. Typically, people who are visual use a lot of color. They highlight information that's important in the text. They also tend to take notes and want those handouts so they can see what the teacher's been talking about. Traditionally, people who are visual like to study in a quiet place, definitely away from disturbances or other people talking. Also, they're able to visualize information as a picture. So, for example, I know that I'm not here, I'm sorry I'm not there today, but if I say the word Mississippi out loud and you think of the word, typically people that can see the letters when you say the word are very visual. So if you're someone that can see the letters for the word Mississippi, then you're probably a really good speller too. So visual learners are also better spellers. Okay, going on, just some tips for people who are more auditory. It's important that if you're auditory to make an effort and participate in class. You tend to like making speeches and you don't mind doing a presentation in front of your peers. If you can, it's recommended that sometimes recording a teacher's lecture is helpful instead of taking notes so you can go home and listen to it later. I think we said this already, but reading text out loud. These people also tend to like create little musical jingles to aid their memorization. I know the example that we always use is remember back in the day when you learned the 50 Nifty United States? Think about that song. If you can sing it, more than likely you learned that song and it helped you remember the 50 nifty United States. Okay, I'm not going to sing for you now. Talk about your ideas verbally, and sometimes just using stories to demonstrate a point. So just a lot more talking in general. And last but not least, some tips for people who are more tactile or kinesthetic. This is important. Those of you that are a little bit, have more energy, take frequent breaks. If you've been studying for more than 20 minutes and you need to get up and walk around, do that. Get up, move around, get a snack. Sometimes people who are more kinesthetic even work better if they're standing. So if you can stand at your kitchen counter or just walk around and read your book. Believe it or not, chewing gum while you're studying will help because you're actually moving something in your body. So chewing gum, also using bright colors to highlight, that's a good tip. Use posters in your room wherever you're studying. This is another good one. Listening to music when you study is helpful. And I know this is a tip for kinesthetic learners, but I think this is important for all learners. Skim through what you're reading prior to sitting down to actually read a chapter in a textbook. This will help you understand or have an idea what you're going to read about. All right, so what we're going to do with this information, obviously, first and foremost, it's important that if you're maybe having difficulty understanding something in a class, let your teacher know how you learn best. Advocate for yourself. We're going to be looking at your inventory here in a second. And with these results, you're going to be reading them and taking notes. So hopefully this information will give you some valuable tips and ideas on how you should study. All right, so here we go. Now, hopefully, Michael Rasher, if you're out there, you don't mind. I have your learning styles inventory results here. And we're going to take a look at them with the class and just kind of see how Michael learns best. I'm going to make these bigger on the screen here. Now, remember, we did this last Friday. And when I look at Michael's inventory, it does go through and tells you basically what your preferences are in a chart representation first. So we can see here that Michael's very independent, more on the low for the auditory side. He prefers more of a traditional setting when it comes to his learning environment. Doesn't necessarily need to have intake, meaning remember food or drink. He's lower on the kinesthetic side, prefers low light. He is very self-motivated, which is awesome, high focus. Prefers a little bit less structure in his learning. He's motivated, like we said before. I think this one's really important, late in the day versus early in the day. Michael prefers to do probably his most challenging learning in the morning. Many of us definitely have a preference. I know for a fact that I would rather do my difficult tasks in the morning when I'm most awake and ready. And he prefers to be warmer, and he's highly visual. So once he's gone through this information, then if you click at the top where it says view results, then they give you a detailed summary of each preference. Now, before you even start to take notes, I do want you to take some time and read through all of the information that the inventory gave you. And I really want you to pick the 5 most important preferences to you. So as I look through this, I know it looks like it's a lot of information, but really what you need to do is just see what the preferences are. Try to understand why it's important. So for example, with light, the amount of light in your learning environment can affect your achievement based on your preference. Some people study and learn better in a brightly lit environment, while others achieve more in a dimly lit area. Your results indicate that when you study or learn new or difficult material, that you prefer to do so in a dimly lit area. Direct sunlight or other bright light may be uncomfortable or actually irritating for your eyes and detracts from your ability to concentrate. Too bright of an area will be distracting for you and will affect your level of achievement. Here are some tips that may help accommodate your preference for studying and learning in a dimly lit environment. So for a person with a low light, they should avoid, they should work, or study with lights that are shaded or curtains that are drawn. Try turning off those really harsh overhead lights and use table lamps instead. Sit away from windows and direct sunlight. If you find yourself in a learning environment that's too bright and there's nowhere to really go, you might want to try wearing sunglasses. Not sure about that one. And also letting your family members know what's best for you. So this gives specifically 5 tips. So I just kind of wanted to give you an example of how you're going to go about getting this information. You'll notice in your packet that you're going to be taking notes on your learning styles preferences, and your teacher will show you today an example of what those notes might look like. All right, so again, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there today. I hope you get a chance to really take time to read through all of your preferences, and when you're taking notes, to choose the 5 most important preferences to you. And tomorrow in class, we'll be using this information to do an activity. All right, have a good day.